If you think that you have to compete for better jobs or more market share, you're as wrong as I was. Let me tell you something that took me years to figure out, something that completely changed the way I approach my career, my business, and my life. The idea of competition is engraved in our minds. From the moment we enter school, we're taught to compete. Compete for grades, compete for spots on the team, compete for college admissions, compete for jobs, compete for promotions, compete for clients, compete for attention. It never ends. We believe that we have to compete for the same jobs with others. If someone has a job, that means you can't have the same job. And if a company has a certain market share, that means you have to compete with that company to win a piece of their share. At least that's what conventional advice says. It's also what I learned in business school. My entire education was based on competing with other businesses. Porter's 5 forces: competitive advantage, market positioning, differentiation strategy, cost leadership. Every single business concept I learned was rooted in the idea of competition. And almost every business book that I've read also assumes that business is competition. It's the foundation of modern business thinking. You study your competitors. You analyze their strengths and weaknesses. You figure out how to beat them. You fight for market share. You compete on price or quality or service. The entire framework is built on the assumption that business is war, and you have to defeat your enemies to win. They couldn't be more wrong. When you assume that you have to compete with other businesses or people for money, jobs, or attention, you're engaged in limited thinking. You're operating from a scarcity mindset. You're seeing the world as a fixed pie where if someone else gets a slice, there's less for you. And that mindset, that way of thinking, is exactly what keeps you stuck. It keeps you small. It keeps you playing defense instead of offense. It keeps you reacting to what others are doing instead of creating something new. Instead, we must adopt an abundance mindset. And I'm not talking about some woo positive thinking nonsense. I'm talking about a practical, realistic understanding of how the world actually works. There was a personal development author named Wallace Wattles, one of the first famous writers in that space. He said something over 100 years ago that's still true today. You get rid of the thought of competition. You are to create, not to compete for what is already created. You do not have to take anything away from anyone. Read that again. You are to create, not to compete for what is already created. You do not have to take anything away from anyone. This is a fundamental mindset shift, and it changes everything. The biggest mistake that conventional business thinkers make is that they believe supply is limited. They think there's only so much money to go around, only so many jobs, only so many opportunities, only so many customers. So if someone else gets them, you can't have them. But that's not always the case. In fact, it's rarely the case. Think about it. Was there a limited supply of smartphones before Apple created the iPhone? No, because smartphones didn't exist yet. Apple didn't compete for market share in the smartphone market. They created the smartphone market. Was there a limited supply of electric vehicles before Tesla? No. Tesla didn't compete in the existing auto market. They created a new category. Was there a limited supply of streaming entertainment before Netflix? No. They created something new. These companies didn't compete. They created. And that made all the difference. But even if supply was limited in some cases, it's harmful to adopt that mindset. I think that most people, entrepreneurs and those who are employed, are afraid that someone else beats them to it. Right? We fear that we lose our clients' business, contracts, attention, and that we lose everything we work so hard for as a result. This fear is everywhere. I see it in my consulting work all the time. Business owners obsessed with what their competitors are doing. Employees terrified that someone younger or cheaper will take their job. Freelancers constantly checking if others are charging less. Content creators panicking when someone else in their niche gains followers. It's exhausting. And it's counterproductive, but that's exactly the problem. Fear begets fear. When you're afraid that you won't be able to grow, what will happen? Exactly, you won't grow. Fear paralyzes you. It makes you play small. It makes you focus on protecting what you have instead of building something new. When you're constantly looking over your shoulder at what your competitors are doing, you're not looking forward at what you could be creating. When you're afraid of losing what you have, you can't focus on gaining something better. The fear of competition keeps you stuck in a defensive mindset, and defense doesn't win championships. Creation does. Let me tell you why I believe so strongly in this. Life is abundant. A quick look at history shows that mankind always kept moving forward. Sure, we've had times of war and economic downfall, recessions, depressions, panics, crises, but we always recovered and grew. Every single time. The economy is bigger now than it was 10 years ago. Technology is more advanced. There are more opportunities, more ways to make money, more ways to create value, more ways to build a career. So when you're expecting that the world economy will not grow, you're actually betting against mankind. I don't believe that. Humans always find a way to survive and prosper. That's simply what we do. It's in our nature. We're creative. We're innovative. We're adaptable. When one door closes, we find or create another one. When resources become scarce, we find or create alternatives. When problems arise, we find or create solutions. This has been true throughout all of human history, and it will continue to be true. You must believe that we live in an abundant world. There is enough opportunity and riches for everyone, not because I'm being naive or overly optimistic, but because it's factually true. The world creates more wealth every year. More businesses are started. More jobs are created. More products are invented, more services are offered, more content is consumed, more value is exchanged. The pie is getting bigger, not smaller. So never allow yourself to think that you won't make it. What is that good for? What purpose does it serve to believe that there's not enough for you? Does it motivate you? No. Does it help you take action? No. Does it make you more creative? No. It does nothing positive. It only holds you back. So let me give you a practical example of how this abundance mindset works in real life. If you can't find the right career, create one. You know, life is not easy. And it's also not easy to find a career that truly satisfies you, both mentally and financially. I know that millions of people face that challenge. They go to college, get a degree, and then realize that the jobs available in their field don't excite them, or the jobs they want are too competitive, or the salary isn't enough, or the work culture is toxic, or 100 other reasons why the existing options don't work for them. But I also know that many of these people limit themselves by thinking that they can't create a career. They assume they have to choose from the existing menu of job titles and career paths. They think they have to fit into a box that someone else created. But that's not true. Similar to how I think entrepreneurs and companies should create market share, I also believe that individual people should create a career. Let me give you a real example. I recently met a chief happiness officer at a non-tech company, which is pretty unusual. When I first heard her title, I thought it was interesting. A chief happiness officer. What does that even mean? I did some research, and it appears that Ronald McDonald was the first who had the CHO title back in 2003. After that, tech companies started adopting the title. It's very simple. A CHO is responsible for the wellness and happiness of employees. They create programs and initiatives to make sure people enjoy coming to work. They measure employee satisfaction. They address concerns. They improve culture. They make work a place where people actually want to be. I also read that Tony Highside, the CEO of Zappos, was a big advocate of employee happiness. He understood that happy employees create happy customers, and happy customers create successful businesses. It's common sense when you think about it. But here's the thing. Traditional companies think it's nonsense. Initially, the company I mentioned before shared that thought. They didn't see the value in having someone whose job was to make employees happy. That seemed like a waste of money, like a luxury they couldn't afford. And naturally, they didn't have a CHO position. It didn't exist in their org chart. It wasn't part of their budget. It wasn't even on their radar. So what did this woman do? She told me she had to create the position. She saw a need. She saw that employees were unhappy. She saw that turnover was high. She saw that productivity was suffering. She saw that the company culture was toxic, and she believed she could fix it. So she didn't apply for a job that didn't exist. She didn't compete with others for a position that wasn't open. She created it. She put together a proposal. She showed the leadership team the data. She demonstrated the return on investment. She made the case for why this position was necessary, and she convinced them to create the role and hire her to fill it. That's creation. That's abundance mindset in action. In the past, leaders believed that the only reason people will work for you is because of the salary. The more money you offer, the better the people you attract. It's a simple transaction. I give you money, you give me work. That was the dominant thinking for decades. And it's still the dominant thinking in many traditional companies. That might be true for some, but more money is not always better. Study after study has shown this. Once people make enough to cover their basic needs and have some financial security, additional money has diminishing returns on happiness and satisfaction. Many people care more about having fun at work, feeling appreciated and being happy. They care about meaning, purpose, impact, recognition, growth, flexibility, culture, all the things that money can't directly buy. And that's what the CHO does successfully. They create an environment where people are happy to come to work. And when people are happy, everything else improves. Productivity goes up, quality goes up, customer satisfaction goes up, retention goes up, profits go up. Here's the thing, it doesn't matter what others think. If you believe in something and if you can create value, go for it. There will always be skeptics. There will always be naysayers. There will always be people who think your idea is stupid or your career path is unrealistic or your business concept won't work. There are always people who say things like, no one needs this. Your work is garbage. You're wasting your time. That will never work. You should get a real job. Who do you think you are? That's been tried before and it failed. The market is too saturated. You're too late. You're too early. You're too old. You're too young. You don't have the right education. You don't have the right experience. You don't have the right connections. The list goes on and on. Don't listen to the naysayers. Let them drown in their own limiting beliefs. They're living in a world of scarcity and competition. They're fighting over crumbs. They're stuck in limited thinking. You don't have to join them. Instead, do this: create value, create solutions, create products, create services, create content, create communities, create experiences, create opportunities, create your own career, create your own business, create your own path, create your own definition of success. That's where the real opportunity is. Not in competing for what already exists, but in creating what doesn't exist yet. There's enough opportunity for everyone in the world. The problem is that most people don't use the opportunities. They don't see them. Or they see them but don't act on them. Or they act on them but give up too quickly. Or they're so busy competing for existing opportunities that they miss the chance to create new ones. If you want to have a specific career, go out there and create it. Don't wait for someone to post a job listing that perfectly matches what you want. Create the position. Make the case for why it's needed. Show how you can add value. Convince someone to hire you for a role that didn't exist before you came along. The same is true for your business. Don't compete in an overcrowded market where everyone is fighting on price and margins are razor thin. Create a new category. Solve a problem that no one else is solving. Serve a niche that no one else is serving. Do something that no one else is doing. And don't focus on limited resources, naysayers, or any other reason you should not do it. Those are all distractions. Those are all excuses. Those are all manifestations of scarcity thinking. Adopt an abundance mindset. Before you know it, you'll have so much opportunity that you don't know what to do with it. I've seen this happen over and over. Once you start creating instead of competing, opportunities multiply. People notice. Doors open. Collaborations happen. Money flows. Success builds on success. In the Netherlands, we call that a luxury problem. Too many opportunities. Too many options. Too many things going well. Believe me, it's the only problem that you want to have. Let me give you some practical steps for how to make this shift from competing to creating. First, examine your current mindset. Are you operating from scarcity or abundance? Do you see opportunities as limited or unlimited? Do you believe there's only so much to go around? Or do you believe there's enough for everyone? Be honest with yourself. Most of us have been conditioned into scarcity thinking, so if that's where you are, that's okay. The first step is awareness. Second, identify where you're competing instead of creating. Look at your career. Look at your business. Look at your life. Where are you fighting for what already exists instead of building something new? Where are you trying to take a piece of someone else's pie instead of baking your own? Where are you playing defense instead of offense? Make a list. Get specific. You can't change what you can't see. Third, ask yourself what you could create instead. If you weren't limited by what already exists, what would you build? If you weren't competing with others, what would you make? If you believed there was enough for everyone, what would you do differently? Dream a little. Get creative. Don't censor yourself. Just brainstorm possibilities. Fourth, start small, but start now. You don't have to create an entirely new career or business overnight, but you can start creating today. Write that article. Make that product. Offer that service. Share that idea. Take one small step toward creation instead of competition. Fifth, ignore the naysayers. They will come. Count on it. When you start creating, people will question you. They'll doubt you. They'll tell you all the reasons it won't work. Let them. Their limiting beliefs are not your problem. Stay focused on what you're building. Sixth, gather evidence for abundance. Start noticing examples of people who created instead of competed. Read their stories. Study their journeys. See how they did it. The more evidence you gather that abundance is real and creation works, the stronger your mindset will become. Seventh, surround yourself with other creators. The people you spend time with shape your thinking. If you're around people who are always competing, fighting, struggling, and complaining about scarcity, that will rub off on you. But if you're around people who are creating, building, innovating, and operating from abundance, that will inspire you. Choose your circle wisely. Eighth, measure your progress. As you shift from competing to creating, track what changes. Do you feel less stressed? Are you taking more risks? Are you having more fun? Are opportunities showing up? Are things flowing more easily? Pay attention. Celebrate the wins. Use them as fuel to keep going. Ninth, be patient. Mindset shifts don't happen overnight. You've probably been conditioned into competition thinking for years, maybe decades. It will take time to fully embrace creation thinking. That's okay. Every time you catch yourself in scarcity mode, just gently redirect to abundance. Every time you find yourself competing, ask if you could be creating instead. It's a practice. 10th, remember that creation serves everyone. When you compete, someone has to lose for you to win. But when you create, everyone can win. You create value that didn't exist before. You solve problems. You help people. You make the pie bigger for everyone. That's not just good for you. It's good for the world. Let me share one more personal example to drive this home. When I started my blog, I could have looked at all the other blogs in my space and felt discouraged. I could have thought the market was saturated. I could have believed there was no room for another voice. I could have tried to compete with established bloggers by copying what they did, but trying to do it cheaper or faster or better. But I didn't do that. Instead, I asked myself, what can I create that doesn't exist yet? What unique perspective do I have? What problems can I solve that others aren't solving? What value can I add that others aren't adding? And I focused on creating, not competing. I didn't worry about other bloggers. I didn't check their traffic stats or try to outrank them in search engines. I just focused on creating valuable content for my audience. And you know what happened? There was room for me. There was an audience for my voice. There were opportunities I never imagined because I wasn't competing for a piece of an existing pie. I was baking my own pie, and that pie has grown bigger than I ever thought possible. That's the power of creation. That's the beauty of abundance thinking. That's what becomes possible when you stop fighting for scraps and start building something new. So I want to challenge you today. Right now, in your career or your business or your life, where are you competing that you could be creating instead? What are you fighting for that you could be building? What are you trying to take from others that you could be making yourself? Think about it. Really think about it. And then make a decision. Decide that you're going to shift from competition to creation. Decide that you're going to adopt an abundance mindset. Decide that you're going to stop fighting for what exists and start building what doesn't. It won't be easy. You'll face resistance. You'll face doubt. You'll face fear. But you'll also experience something amazing. You'll experience the freedom of creating your own path. You'll experience the joy of building something that's uniquely yours. You'll experience the abundance that comes when you stop competing and start creating. If this video resonated with you, drop a comment below and tell me, what are you going to create instead of compete for? What's the first step you're going to take toward creation? I read every comment and I want to hear what you're building. And if you want more mindset shifts like this that help you build the career and life you actually want, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Next week, I'm breaking down exactly how to identify opportunities that others don't see and how to create value in unexpected places. Because creation is a skill you can learn, and I'm going to teach you how you've got this. Stop competing. Start creating. I'll see you in the next one.